Bowser, who's a renowned Canadian HVAC expert, who's here today to make a special announcement.
Well, you can start at the low level with the nuts and bolts and move up to the higher policy issues. Basically today I have made a call to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to
initiate an inquiry under the Building Code Act to investigate the failure to enforce the Ontario Building Code with respect to small diameter, high velocity heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. According to CTV's W5 in 2012, more than 50,000 of these systems were installed in the GTA alone, and these systems continue to be sold in Ontario. Consumers who purchased the new homes expect that the regulatory and warranty agencies will provide them with a home that complies with the Ontario Building Code. They also expect that if it's found that their home doesn't comply with the Ontario Building Code, that there is recourse, that something can be done about it. What they have found is that they don't have recourse, that all of these homes don't comply to the Ontario Building Code, and when they make complaints or representations to all of the various agencies and warranty agencies, Tarion, the Ombudsman, no one does anything about it. It's significant because although this concerns, in this case, a particular type of HVAC system, from a broader policy perspective, it means that our system of new home regulation, from the enforcement side to the warranty side, actually doesn't work. It's smoke and mirrors. And from a broader perspective, you can ask the question, what's next? Is there something else that's going to be some other system or some other appliance or some other component that's not going to meet the building code? We aren't going to discover until there's a lot of them out there, and we're going to find that the municipalities who are responsible for making sure that homes comply will say, not me, no, we're not responsible. The engineers who prepared the designs and signed the documents will say, no, not me, I'm not responsible. That new home warranty will say, Tarion, sorry, I'm living in the past now. Tarion will say, oh, no, not us, we're not covering it. So I think for people in Ontario who pay taxes, to the municipal government, who pay fees to Tarion, the question is, are they actually getting what they pay for? Thank you.
And the reason why I know of the many problems that people have is because of the multiple condo construction that we have from the developers. And even though some of the developers are very good, some are very bad. And when people have a problem with shoddy development, you would hope that when you go to Tarion, you would get the satisfaction that you are entitled to, because remember, you're paying for this. You as a homeowner or a condo owner are paying for it, are paying for your warranty out of the fees that you pay. So this is it's not something that developers are necessarily paying for. It's not the government that's paying for it. The homeowner or the condo owner is actually paying for that warranty. And you should be entitled to expect a service if the construction was shoddy. Yet my experience and your experience over the years is that when you're faced with a problem, you are on your own. And it can be a painful, expensive problem. And I think it's an abuse of democracy in my humble view. And part of what I said in my bill many, many years ago, in my first bill, 2008, where I actually said we need to reform Tarion and make it a consumer association or a board that actually protects consumers, because that's what their responsibility ought to be. And for many years, my bill on condo reform was dismissed. by every minister, because we've had a minister every year, as you might know, those who follow the issue in that particular ministry. And if you've got a minister every other year, it means you've got to start all over again and attempt to communicate with that new minister. But they rejected everything that I said about condominiums and everything I said about Tarion. And each one claimed everything was working just fine. And the problem is that when this authority was delegated to Tarion under a different name 40 years ago, they gave this power, or they give an unusual power to the Ontario Home Builders Association to name the majority of board members on Tarion. So think about this. In law, the Ontario Home Builders Association had the delegated authority to appoint a majority of board members. Now, how can consumers expect to get the kind of justice they deserve if you happen to have been one of the victims of shoddy construction? Well, you just can't get it. And so, from the very start, in my view, what we needed to do was to change Tarion so it genuinely reflects the needs of people who have suffered bad construction. And so you didn't get that. So I don't have time to talk about the condominium bill, which I would have loved to have done. But in this bill, the government decided after 2 years of consultations and another year of waiting, they decided that they would include under Tarion protection, for those of you who haven't been getting it, it's a problem, but under it now, Tarion is able to cover condominium conversions. Because those buildings or factories that get converted into condominiums were not covered by Tarion. So this government has decided to include that in the bill, which was part of a bill I introduced many, many years ago, but didn't bother to look at reforming Tarion altogether. Which means that those of you who have suffered, those of you who are suffering, and those who will follow you in the future will have to continue fighting it out on your own. In my view, it's a shame. And it appears to be that the government is afraid of making those changes. It is afraid of tackling developers because they make hefty contributions to political parties, mostly liberal and conservatives. The NDP doesn't get much contribution, as you might imagine. I believe they're afraid. And I think developers want to leave things as they are, and this current government is obliging. I believe that has to change. And the only way to change is for people to continue lobbying. Do what you've always done. I know governments shun you because of the incredible effort you put in to try to make changes. But changes will happen. Changes do happen. It just takes time. The fact that the government has introduced condominium reform after I introduced 4 bills means that some changes happen, but not all the changes that we need. So, for example, in the condominium bill, it allows for a resolution of problems by an authority, condominium authority, but it's only between condominium owners and condominium owners and boards. There's absolutely no mention of finding a resolution or resolving a problem between a condo board and a property manager. It's not there. And if you heard all the stories I've heard about problems that people have had with property managers, you would think that it would be in that bill, but it's not. And so even though it has another element which I call for, which is that they should be certified, which is good, it doesn't allow for this authority to solve disputes between condo owners and property managers, and it should. And it doesn't allow for a condo owner to go after a developer who has not built properly that condominium. That's not in the bill either. So you can see parallels between what I've been trying to do in the Condominium Act and what I'm trying to do with Tarion. They're simply not interested in making changes as it relates to developers. And to me, it's sad. And it speaks badly of the government. It speaks badly, in my view, of good developers. Because you would think good developers would say, we want this to be done right. And yet I have not seen one developer come forward saying, perhaps we might have to make some changes here. Not one. So the only way to deal with this is for you to continue pressuring, which is what you're doing. And I came here to support you and to support you because of all the work you've done. And rest assured, change will happen. It just takes time.
Thank you, Thank you. For those very meaningful remarks. Thank you. Now we'll hear from Dr. Karen Somerville, who's president of Canadians for Properly Built Homes. Karen.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here tonight. I recognize many faces in the crowd, and we appreciate your ongoing support and your interest. I can tell you that as each month passes, the urgent need for Bill 60, the Tarion Oversight and Accountability Act, becomes more and more obvious. Tonight I'm going to give you 6 examples of why this new legislation is so important. We have many more, but I've focused on 6 tonight. Excuse me. Using Tarion's own client survey data, approximately 60,000 Ontario families, Tarion's clients, are dissatisfied with Tarion. This number is very significant, and some of you who are in this room tonight counted in that number. As we know, the purchase of a home is the largest purchase that most consumers make. A home with serious construction defects, an unresponsive builder, and the lack of adequate consumer protection is financially very difficult for most families, but it goes far beyond the money, as many of you here know. It's a loss of time with our families, it's the stress and anxiety, it goes on and on. That's point number 1. Point number 2 is that the media continues to highlight serious problems as a result of shoddy construction in Ontario. It's important to note that in addition to Tarion's warranty responsibilities, it's also the regulator of the building industry. Let me be clear about this, please. There are good builders operating in Ontario. We simply don't know who they are, for sure. There are also marginal and poor builders operating in Ontario. Why does Tarion continue to let their Tarion-approved marginal and poor builders operate? We need to ask that question. Point number 3. Unfortunately, there continues to be serious problems with municipal inspections. Section 18 of the Act that Tarion is responsible for administering, the Ontario New Home Warranty Plan Act, Section 18 of that Act allows Tarion to inspect during construction. But it appears that Tarion continues to choose not to inspect during construction. If Tarion exercised its inspection rights with sufficient qualified inspectors, it would pick up many, if not all, of the Ontario Building Code violations missed by municipalities during construction, and would also pick up habitability and workmanship issues which the municipalities are not focused on. Tarion could then ensure that the construction defects are properly fixed before consumers take possession of the homes. We understand that qualified Tarion inspectors inspecting during construction would quickly pay for themselves while improving the quality of Ontario's housing stock and improving consumer protection. Point number 4, Section 13 of that same Act says that Tarion's warranty needs to ensure the home is constructed in accordance with the building code. Dara Bowser has already spoken to this issue tonight. Many of you in this room have suffered from your homes not meeting the minimum standard of the Ontario Building Code. But Tarion has denied some homeowner claims involving Ontario Building Code violations as consumers did not report within the required time frame that Tarion sets itself through their own regulations. As one example, Tarion has left numerous seniors to freeze in their newly built homes with Ontario Building Code violations. We have been asking how Tarion can legally ignore Section 13 of the Act, but no answers have been provided by Tarion or by Minister Orazietti to that question. Point number 5. Generally, both Tarion and Minister Orazietti appear to have adopted a strategy of not answering most of our questions related to Tarion, but then they often respond that they did answer the questions. we've asked for them to resend what they said they originally sent, we have been met with silence. It is surprising how Minister Orazietta's words seem to parrot what Tarion says. Think about this, a minister. Also, Minister Orazietti says that he is working with Tarion. But he and his ministry are supposed to be providing oversight to Tarion. Indeed, according to Tarion's financial statements, the Government of Ontario receives about $250,000 annually in an oversight fee that the financials have called related party transactions. Now that's surprising when you think of this, because it's supposed to be arm's length. The lines between the Government of Ontario and Tarion are indeed very blurred. Tragically, Premier Wynne and Minister Orazietti and others in the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services seem much more interested in protecting Tarion and the building industry than Ontario's consumers. Point number 6, the last one that I'll raise this evening. Tarion is a mandatory monopoly, and Ontario's purchasers of newly built homes pay most of the fees collected by Tarion. Tarion's financials show that Tarion's wealth continues to grow. As one example, in their most recent published financial statements, Tarion has reported $478 million in investments as of December 2014. $478 million. That's one example out of those financials. How has Tarion, a non-profit corporation, been allowed to accumulate this wealth while denying consumer claims for Ontario Building Code violations? It's time for proper oversight of Tarion and for Tarion to become accountable to Ontario's consumers. Bill 60 is an important step in this urgently needed transformation of Tarion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Karen Somerville, for your important session this evening. Thank you very much, Randy Pettipies, for joining us. If you don't mind beginning your comments now, we'd be very pleased.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for inviting me here tonight and inviting me to join in your comments. We have, you might remember that one of our members, the member from Perry Sound, Muskoka, Norm Miller, introduced a bill. I think it was last year, if I'm correct, on increasing the oversight in Tarion. And I certainly am going to look forward to the debate on Bill 60. We haven't caucused it yet, but when we get that done, we'll certainly bring our recommendations for the bill and to Mr. Singh's bill. So that's kind of where we are right now. And but we, like I said, I think there needs to be a little more oversight certainly on this business than there has been before.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pettipies, and thank you for making it here to this event. Jeffrey Furland. He and his wife have had a 1.5-year battle trying to get their home fixed through Tarion and the Licensed Appeal Tribunal. Many of us have witnessed what they've been through their Make Tarion Accountable website. Please, Jeffrey, if you'd like to take the floor and describe to us what you've been through.
Thank you, Ms. Captain, and thank you everyone else for coming here tonight. And that's true, my wife and I are one of those 60,000 dissatisfied homeowners, and probably one of the few that are willing to come up and speak in front of all of you about defects to our home, Ontario Building Code violations, as well as things that are wrong with our house. But we are, because of what we went through, and we know what is going on, and the system that's in place right now is not right. And we can do better here in Ontario. Over 3 years ago, my wife and I moved into a new home in the city of Mississauga. We consider ourselves very fortunate for being able to afford this new home. We were, however, unfortunate to encounter a new home warranty program, Tarion, which was unaccountable when we needed it. With the construction of our home, our builder violated the Ontario Building Code, as well as the terms of our agreement. We turned to Tarion to resolve these issues. And instead of Tarion requiring the builder to comply with the Ontario Building Code and the terms of our agreement, they chose to deny us the warranty coverage. We subsequently tried to appeal this decision at the Licensed Appeal Tribunal, the LAT. At the LAT, Tarion chose to work with the builder to try to defeat our appeal. Throughout the appeal process, my wife, Aleksandra, and I have chronicled, as Barbara has mentioned, on what we've been through. One of the issues with our home that we appealed was our builder's failure to install a thicker cement bed and also a membrane under the tiles of our floor, as required by the Ontario Building Code. At the LAT, Tarion attempted to mislead the adjudicator to believe that they did not know whether or not the membrane had been installed. Tarion, and again this is our opinion and what we experienced, but Tarion presented reports that failed to mention the effect of the missing membrane on our floor. They produced multiple reports but failed to mention this essential component. However, they were supposed to be looking at the floor. On the stand, when I questioned Tarion's expert about whether Tarion had advised them that there wasn't a membrane installed, the expert admitted Tarion had advised them that no membrane had been installed. Tarion's expert also argued that a thicker concrete bed would not help because, according to Tarion's expert, concrete has no thickness. Stiffness. These are just some examples of how Tarion attempted to mislead justice in our case, and reasons why we need to make Tarion accountable and we need to support Bill 60. In our case, Tarion also did not provide warranty coverage for reinforcing steel around the windows in our foundation. By failing to install these window reinforcements, our builder violated the Ontario Building Code Act. At the LAT, however, Tarion argued that the Ontario Building Code Act is not relevant to any Tarion proceeding. This declaration made by Tarion is not true, and again is another example of how Tarion misled justice in an attempt to avoid providing warranty coverage. Perhaps misled by Tarion, the adjudicator at the LAT conferred with Tarion. At the LAT, the adjudicator in our case prevented us from presenting these violations in our case. Our experience is that Tarion is not accountable to consumers, but to their own self-interest. In our case, it was clear to us that Tarion's interest was in defeating our claim, even if it meant breaking the law to do it. During our appeal, my wife and I represented ourselves. Tarion, however, hired outside counsel and also attended with their in-house counsel as well. On top of this, Tarion added the builder as an added party, effectively turning the appeal into a 2-on-1, with Tarion's lawyers and the builder's lawyer against my wife and I. After beginning our appeal in January 2014 and attending the LAT for 30 days to have our appeal heard, we are still now waiting for a decision. Tarion knows how difficult it is for homeowners to fight their decisions in court. For us to hire legal counsel to attend the LAT for 30 days was not a feasible option. Most homeowners cannot afford the cost for legal counsel, experts, and the time away from work and family to appeal Tarion's decisions. This was a huge sacrifice for our family, and one I do not want other families to have to make in the future. This is an important reason why I'm here tonight. It's unfair and misleading to hear Tarion and our Minister of Consumer Services right now, Mr. David Orzetti, using statistics of the number of families appealing Tarion's decisions at the LAT as evidence that Tarion is being accountable. This declaration by our minister does not acknowledge the realities of what is involved with appealing a decision at the LAT or the sacrifices many families have made in other courts as well. I'm asking Premier Wynne and all members of Provincial Parliament to make Private Members Bill, Bill 60, a priority and support its passage to becoming law. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our panel, and thank you again to our attendees. We're lucky enough to have some members of the press here today, and we'd like to open up for a few minutes of questions. Just to summarize everything that's been said, this is consumer protection legislation. We have to make it protect consumers, not builders. We have to keep pushing forward for that. It's Bill 60 this time, but we need to protect consumers. We all feel pain in this room, and we hear your stories, and we want to try to help fix this, and so does our panel, and so do all of your guests who are present here. Thank you again. Can I open the forum for some questions, if you'd like? Yes?
My question is to Mr. Pettis. I'm Earl Schumann, by the way. We've never met. I've sent to you information about the Schumann test fraud. Jeffrey just talked about cover-up by Tarion, a building code violation in his house. That constitutes fraud and obstruction of justice under the Criminal Code Act of Canada. They pulled the same tricks in my case, the Schumann test fraud, and it affected maybe hundreds of other citizens in Ontario. Are you going to call in the police and ask for a criminal investigation or not?
I am, no, I'm not going to go that far yet with it.
Why?
I'm
Why?
not-
Why beat around the bush?
Sir, would you let me answer the question? I'm not a lawyer, and I...
You don't need to be a lawyer, sir.
Sir,
With all
would you
due
let me
respect,
answer the question, please?
You don't need to be a lawyer to read
I'm sorry.
the Criminal Code Act.
Okay, let him finish.
I'm just angry because
No,
citizens
I know that.
are being taken. They're being treated like idiots.
Yeah, okay. I'm
We
sorry.
are well aware of your story, many of us. We feel pain for it. I understand your emotion, but we need to give the Member of Parliament an opportunity to
I'm
respond.
finished.
Thank you.
Sir, go
Thank
ahead,
you.
I'm sorry.
Sir, I'm not your enemy here, okay? We are looking at this bill very seriously, Bill 60. Sir, please. We are looking at this bill very seriously. We need to take it to caucus, but I can assure you, from previous experience with this type of thing, as I say, MPP Miller brought a bill in last year for this similar bill to this. So I can say to you that we're going to study very carefully and support these types of things. What I would ask you to do, though, and I don't know whether you know what's going on in the House right now, but this current government is limiting our debate on bills right now. And also when it gets to committee, and I would like to, we'll probably support this at least to committee, she is only allowing us 2 days of committee work on these things. So very few witnesses can testify at these committee meetings. We feel that's very unfair. So I don't know whether she's going to do that this fall, but I would ask you that if she does, to protest rather loudly, because if the number of cases is true, and your case is true, 5 minutes is not long enough for you to testify at these committee meetings. So that's something that this government is doing right now. So I would ask you to, we'll see what happens in the fall anyways. But because there's certainly, with any bill, there's always a number of amendments that one party or another wants to make the bills. Wait till then. We will give you our decision as to the caucus's, our caucus's position on this bill. But it looks, I would say that we're probably going to support this bill the way it sits right now.
The opportunity to have the Ombudsman of Ontario investigate Tarion. We've got the opportunity for the Auditor General to look at the books of Tarion. If Bill 60 passes, did you want to add something, Karen?
Well, yes, Bill 60 would have to pass for
Yes,
the ombudsman
yes.
and the auditor to be able to do that.
Because that indeed is what's stopping us all up here. We don't have independent oversight and accountability. Keep getting new bills to the legislature, and for some reason they don't pass. We will eventually pass one. I can guarantee you that. I may take another lifetime, but we will. And I believe that, and we have to keep believing in that. And for that purpose, I want you to all focus on, it's about protecting the consumers tonight and speaking up for our rights. And I really think that this is an important step forward in doing that. And I want to thank you all. Thank you so much again, and let's go to the next phase of this. Thank you very much.